Alright, let's dive into this story, because it's one of those situations where you can't help but think, how did we get here? And honestly, it's a lot more complex than just a headline about a tragic incident. So let's break it down. First off, the hook here is obvious. Elijah Bieniemy, the son of Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy, allegedly shot his mother, Mia, and now we're learning there were red flags long before this happened. But what makes this really interesting is the pattern of behavior leading up to it. Personally, I think this story isn't just about a single event. It's about a system that failed to connect the dots. And that's what we're going to unpack today. So, 2 days before the shooting, Elijah calls the police to complain that his parents are withholding his firearms. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a typical family dispute, right? But here's where it gets messy. He claims he's a certified UFC fighter and needs the weapons for self-defense. One thing that immediately stands out is the desperation in his reasoning. I mean, if you take a step back and think about it, why would someone feel the need to justify owning firearms by citing their martial arts training? It's almost like he's trying to convince himself as much as the police. And that raises a deeper question. Was this a cry for help, or a sign of something more volatile? What many people don't realize is that this wasn't the first time law enforcement had been involved with the Bieniemy family. There were at least 3 calls in the 2 months leading up to the shooting. One of them came from a counselor at Elijah's remote college, requesting a welfare check. Now, this is where I think the system starts to look flawed. A counselor is concerned enough to call the police, but the report concludes there's no urgent response needed. From my perspective, that's a missed opportunity. If someone in a professional role is raising alarms, shouldn't that trigger a more thorough investigation? Another detail I find fascinating is the June 22nd incident report, which is heavily redacted. We don't know the specifics, but it involved both Elijah and Mia. What this really suggests is that there was tension in the household, possibly escalating, and yet it didn't lead to any preventative measures. It's like the pieces of a puzzle were there, but no one bothered to put them together. And that's where I think the broader conversation needs to happen. How do we better identify and address these patterns before they turn tragic? Now, let's talk about the mental health angle. Elijah's public defender requested a mental evaluation, stating he appears to suffer from significant mental health issues and can't assist in his own defense. Personally, I think this is both heartbreaking and frustrating. Heartbreaking because it's clear he was struggling, and frustrating because it feels like another instance of reactive rather than proactive care. If you ask me, mental health should be at the forefront of these discussions. We can't keep treating these situations as isolated incidents without addressing the underlying issues. What makes this story even more layered is the family's connection to the NFL. Eric Bieniemy is a high-profile figure, and now his personal life is under a microscope. But here's the thing, this isn't just about sports. It's about a family in crisis, and the fact that it's tied to a well-known name only highlights how these issues can affect anyone, regardless of status. In my opinion, that's what makes it such a critical conversation to have. So where do we go from here? Well, Mia Bieniemy is recovering, which is a small silver lining. But the bigger question is how we prevent something like this from happening again. From my perspective, it starts with better communication, more resources for mental health, and a willingness to take concerns seriously, even when they seem minor. If you ask me, that's the only way we can hope to break these cycles. And that's my take on this story. It's not just about what happened, it's about what we can learn from it. So, I'll leave you with this. What do you think could have been done differently? Let me know in the comments, because this is a conversation we all need to be having.